Ladies and gentlemen, there is a sacred illusion that has governed the human mind for thousands of years, an illusion that God is somewhere else out there above the clouds, hidden in holy books, locked behind rituals, or found only in the presence of saints and prophets. We were taught to look up, to kneel down, to chase something grand and far away. But what if the greatest secret of all, the secret whispered in every ancient text, the truth behind every miracle, is that God has never been outside of you? Not for a single breath, not for a single heartbeat. God is not above you. God is not around you. God is not hiding in a temple or buried in the sand. God is not an entity floating in the heavens counting your sins or judging your failures. God is not a being. God is a presence, a vibration, a frequency, an energy, and that energy lives inside of you. It pulses in your chest, not just as a heartbeat, but as a rhythm of cosmic intelligence. It rises with the sun through your thoughts. It flows with your breath as inspiration. It sings in your silence and whispers in your intuition. It is the light behind your eyes, the warmth behind your love, the stillness behind your peace. You don't have to go anywhere to find it. You only have to remember you have never been separate. You've only believed that you were. We were born into a world that confused form with truth. We were told we were bodies. We were told we were names, histories, roles, genders, religions, nationalities. We were given identities to wear like masks in a theater. But behind every mask is the same light, the same essence, the same eternal current of being that has no label. No boundary, no limitation. You are not a body with a soul. You are a soul having a brief sacred passing experience in a body. And that soul, your soul, is not disconnected from God. It is God, not the entirety, but the expression, the drop that contains the whole ocean, the flame that reveals the nature of fire. You are the divine, individualized. And if that is true, and it is, then everything about your life begins to change, because no longer do you search for peace outside of yourself. You no longer chase love from others like a beggar. You no longer strive to be good enough, holy enough, worthy enough. You realize that you already are, because how can that which is divine be unworthy? Your worth is not negotiable. It is not determined by your past. It is not reduced by your mistakes. You are not here to earn divinity. You are here to express it, to remember it, to embody it. When Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you, he wasn't being poetic. He was describing a metaphysical reality that the infinite lives in the finite, that the source is not out of reach, that the door to heaven swings open inward. The great mystics of every age have known this. Rumi wrote, "I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God." Lasu said, "Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment." The Upanishads tell us that the Bhagavad Gita echoes, "The self is the friend of the self." Even science, if you look closely, is beginning to whisper this truth, that consciousness is not an accident, but the ground of all being. And so the invitation of your life is not to find God. It is to remove everything that blocks your awareness of God within you. The ego is the veil. The past is the noise. The story is the distraction. But the truth has always been here, still silent, waiting like the sun behind the clouds. It doesn't argue. It doesn't force. It doesn't punish. It simply waits for your willingness to remember who you really are and who are you. You are not your name. You are not your job. You are not your resume. You are not your trauma. You are not your bank account. You are not your followers, your likes, your clothes, your failures, or your successes. You are not the story others wrote for you. You are not the story you wrote to survive. You are the awareness behind the story, the still presence watching the movie of your life unfold. You are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. You are not the pain. You are the presence it passes through. You are not the fear. You are the faith it tries to hide. You are not your ego. You are not your wound. You are not your past. You are the divine energy expressing itself through this temporary costume of form. And once you remember this, not just intellectually, but spiritually, cellularly, everything shifts. You stop looking for validation. You stop playing roles. You stop performing for love. You stop carrying guilt like a cross on your back. You stop needing to be fixed because you realize you were never broken. Your healing does not begin when the world changes. It begins when your perception changes. When you stop seeing yourself as separate from the source of life and begin to live as if you are one with it. Because you are there is no place you can go where God is not. Not because God is everywhere, but because everywhere is in God. Because existence itself is God in motion, love in form, spirit in rhythm. And your soul is a thread in that vast, endless tapestry of being. And this means that your life is not random. Your pain is not pointless. Your existence is not small. It means that the breath you are taking right now is holy. The moment you are in right now is sacred. The body you inhabit is a temple of energy vibrating with ancient intelligence. You don't need to wait to die to return to God. You only need to awaken to the fact that you never left. Heaven is not a location. Heaven is a level of awareness, and hell is not punishment. Hell is the illusion of separation. It is living as if you are alone, as if you are unloved, as if you are lost. But you are none of those things. You are found. You are held. You are guided. You are loved beyond comprehension, not because of what you do, but because of what you are. You are light wrapped in skin. You are infinity in motion. You are God dreaming of being human for a little while. And when you awaken to this truth, forgiveness becomes easy because you recognize that the one you're forgiving is also the divine in disguise. Compassion becomes natural because every person you meet is you in another form. Love becomes unconditional because it's no longer a transaction, it's a transmission. And peace becomes your default because nothing can disturb the stillness of the soul that knows it is one with the all. So the next time you look in the mirror, don't just see a face, see the infinite gazing back at itself. The next time you feel alone, place your hand on your heart and feel the presence that has never left. The next time you pray, don't send your words into the sky. Listen for the answer rising from within. You are not trying to become divine. You are remembering that you already are. And this remembrance, this return is the beginning of true freedom. You don't need to fight for what already belongs to you. You don't need to beg for what you already are. And you don't need to wait for someone else to awaken. First, you are the awakening. You are the permission slip. You are the spark that lights the fire of remembrance in others just by being who you truly are. When you walk into a room fully grounded in your divine essence, you don't need to say a word. Your presence becomes the sermon. Your peace becomes the teaching. Your authenticity becomes the miracle. Because when you remember that God is not outside of you, you stop chasing and start radiating. You stop searching and start serving. You stop trying to become and you begin to be. You begin to live like the lotus rooted in the mud, but blooming in the light. You begin to live like the sun, not asking the world for permission to shine. You begin to live like the ocean deep, powerful and undisturbed by the surface waves. This is not about religion. This is about revelation. This is not about dogma. This is about direct experience. You don't need a middleman to access the divine. You only need stillness. You only need silence. You only need the courage to sit with yourself until the noise fades and the truth rises. And what is that truth? That you are not alone. You never were. That everything you've been searching for, love, peace, worth, wholeness, is already within you. That God is not a being in the sky. God is the being within all beings. The eternal I am that speaks through your breath, moves through your hands, sees through your eyes. When you hold a newborn child and feel your heart crack open with wonder, that's God. When you stand in nature and feel all wash over you like a baptism, that's God. When you forgive someone who never said sorry and feel the chains break in your chest, that's God. When you sit in the silence of your own soul and feel the warmth of presence that is God, God is not something you understand. God is something you remember. And every moment of your life has been guiding you back to that remembrance, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. Because pain is often the chisel that cracks the shell of illusion. Suffering is the wake-up call. Rock bottom is often the beginning of real clarity. We don't wake up because life is perfect. We wake up because we realize perfection was never the goal. Presence is, peace is, and truth is this: you are not separate. You were never cast out. You were never abandoned. You only forgot who you are, and now you are remembering. The spiritual path is not a journey to someplace new. It is the return to where you've always been, beneath the noise, beneath the story, beneath the roles. It is peeling back the layers of identity until only presence remains, until only love remains, until only God remains. And when you touch that space, when you live from that space, you become a vessel, a living temple, not a preacher of truth, but a presence of truth. And the world does not need more preachers. It needs more presence. That needs more people who have remembered who they are and live accordingly with gentleness, with power, with purpose, with peace. You were not put here to suffer through life hoping for a reward in the afterlife. You were not sent here to prove your worth or earn your salvation. You were born to express divinity in form, to create, to heal, to love, to serve, to awaken. You are the eyes through which the universe sees itself. You are the hands through which love touches the world. You are the voice through which truth sings. And the more you align with that awareness, the more your life begins to reflect it. Not because you manipulate circumstances, but because you change your vibrational point of origin. You stop operating from fear and start operating from faith. You stop reacting from ego and start responding from essence. You stop surviving and begin thriving. This is the alchemy of awakening. When you stop seeking God as something external and begin realizing that every breath is a prayer, every moment is sacred, and every being is divine, your life becomes a living meditation. You find the sacred in the ordinary. You hear the infinite in the silence. You see the face of God in the mirror, not out of arrogance, but out of awe. And this is what the world needs now. Not more beliefs, but more beings. Not more ideas, but more embodiment. Not more preaching, but more presence. A planet full of awakened souls who no longer search for light outside, but choose to become the light inside. Because when you light up from within, you give others permission to remember their own flame. When you walk as divinity embodied, you heal without speaking. When you love from your center, you transform the atmosphere around you. And that love, that God energy, has no limits. It is not reserved for saints and sages. It is the birthright of every soul. It is the essence of every child, every stranger, every enemy. There is no one who is not divine. There is only consciousness that has forgotten itself. And when you meet someone who has forgotten, your role is not to judge. Your role is to remind by your presence, to remind by your compassion, to remind by your peace. Because the moment you see God in another, you activate the God in them. The moment you forgive, you invite another into their own freedom. The moment you speak truth without fear, you become a lighthouse in the fog. And the fog is thick right now. The world is noisy. The world is afraid. The world has built a shrine to the ego and forgotten the altar of the soul. But even in this darkness, the light within has not dimmed. It only waits for your awareness to return. So come home. Come home to yourself. Come home to the truth that has always been waiting beneath your breath. You are not missing. You are not flawed. You are not behind. You are not unworthy. You are divine. You are radiant. You are the energy of God dancing in human form. You don't need to chase enlightenment. You need to embody what you already are. So breathe not just to survive, but to remember. Breathe in your wholeness. Breathe in your innocence. Breathe in your connection to all that is. And when the world tries to distract you, return to this breath. Return to this moment. Return to the energy that beats your heart and births the stars, because that energy is you. You are the temple and the flame. You are the question and the answer. You are the seeker and the source. And when you live from this knowing, life becomes a sacred flow. Challenges become opportunities to deepen your truth. Loss becomes a portal into love. Conflict becomes a classroom for compassion. Every experience becomes a step in your return to the truth. The truth that God is not outside of you. God is not in the sky waiting for you to be perfect. God is not a judge watching you through a lens of sin. God is the breath inside your breath, the stillness behind your thoughts, the love that you feel when all the noise fades. You are not separate. You never were. You just forgot. And now you are remembering. And in that remembering, you are reborn. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the search loses its meaning. Not because the search failed, but because the search was always a mirror leading inward. The maps you followed, the teachings you clung to, the gurus you revered, the rituals you performed, all of them were stepping stones. Sacred, yes, but not destinations. They were never meant to lead you to something outside of you, but to bring you back to the holy stillness within, the silent sanctuary where nothing is missing and no part of you is exiled. This moment, this breath is your arrival, not in time, but in truth. When you release the idea that you must become something more to be worthy of the divine, you enter the dimension of being. And being is not passive. Being is not empty. Being is a cosmic radiance. It is a living alignment. It is the holy reverence that comes when you stand in your center without effort, without masks, without needing to prove your light to a world that's forgotten its own. You don't become divine by reaching upward. You become divine by sinking inward. And as you do, you realize that stillness is not the absence of noise. It is the presence of God. It is the space from which all miracles arise, the field where form and formlessness meet. In that space, you remember that you are not here to master life like a test. You are here to merge with it like a dance, to move in rhythm with the intelligence that breathes stars into existence and still takes the time to open a flower. There is no arrogance in this knowing, only awe, only humility, only the peace that comes when you stop trying to contain the infinite within your mind and instead allow your heart to become its home. For the ego seeks to grasp, the soul seeks to surrender. The ego builds identity out of pain, out of story, out of past. The soul simply is unburdened, eternal, whole. And every time you choose presence over performance, truth over illusion, love over defense, you dissolve another layer of separation and step more fully into the light that has always been waiting. You don't need to heal yourself into worthiness. You only need to remember that the light you long for is not something to earn. It is something to uncover. And as you uncover it, something begins to shift, not just within you, but around you. The world starts responding differently, not because the outer world changed, but because your inner signal did. Like a radio that finally tunes to the right frequency, you begin to hear a different song, a quieter song, a truer one. You begin to recognize guidance in what once felt random. You begin to feel supported in ways that defy logic. You begin to trust life, not because it always makes sense, but because you no longer need it to. You begin to understand that the energy that created this universe, the energy that shaped galaxies, composed the laws of nature, painted the skies with sunsets and orchestrated the tides, is not distant from you. It flows through you. It animates you. It breathes you. And when you live from this awareness, your actions become expressions of love instead of fear. Your relationships become altars of growth instead of battlegrounds of control. Your words become vessels of truth instead of weapons of validation. This is what it means to live as the soul and not as the mass. This is what it means to walk the earth as divinity incarnate. You no longer see others as threats or strangers, but as reflections, sacred echoes, each one offering you the chance to practice remembrance. And the more you remember, the more you soften. The more you soften, the more you heal. And the more you heal, the more others heal just by being in your field. This is the quiet revolution of awakened presence. It changes the world not through force, but through frequency. And this frequency is not loud. It's not desperate. It's not defensive. It's gentle, like the light that enters a room without knocking, like the wind that moves the trees, without needing to be seen. Like love that simply loves without agenda, without demand, without needing to be returned. This is how the divine works. Not as a ruler, but as a presence. Not as a command, but as a current. And the more you surrender to this current, the more your life becomes a river instead of a struggle. Not without pain, not without challenge, but with an unshakable foundation of peace that whispers even in the storm. You are not alone. The storm does not mean you are forsaken. The wound does not mean you are broken. The doubt does not mean you have failed. It means you are growing. It means the veil is thinning. It means you are being called to remember. Again, not in concept, but in embodiment, not just to know that God is within, but to live as though it were unmistakably true. To live as though the breath you take is divine intelligence entering your body. To live as though every act of kindness is a prayer in motion. To live as though your very presence is a sanctuary where others remember their light. This is not spiritual idealism. This is radical realism. To see beyond the illusion of fear and touch the deeper truth of love that holds it all. Because what is God if not love itself? Not the fragile love that says only if you earn it. Not the conditional love that keeps score. Not the fleeting love that changes with behavior, but the eternal, boundless, all-pervading love that simply is. The love that has no opposite. The love that includes every shadow. The love that redeems without punishment. The love that burns away the illusion of separation with a single glance. And you are here to be the mirror of that love, not in perfection, but in presence. Not by trying to become it, but by removing everything that blocks it. Every time you let go of judgment, you make room for that love. Every time you forgive yourself, you open the window to that love. Every time you choose compassion over condemnation, you become a vessel for that love. not just for others, but for yourself, because you too are worthy of the grace you give so easily to others. You too are worthy of returning home to yourself. Not someday, not when you're better, but now. Now, when you are still tangled in your questions. Now, when you are still healing your wounds. Now, when the light inside is a flicker instead of a flame. That flicker is enough. That breath is enough. That moment of truth is enough to begin again. And beginning again is the most spiritual act there is, because every moment offers the possibility of awakening. Every moment is holy ground when you walk it with awareness. And every time you choose to remember, even for a second, that God is not outside of you, the veil thins a little more until one day you stop looking for the divine and you simply become it. There is a sacred humility that descends upon the soul when it no longer needs to shine, not because it doubts its light, but because it has become the light. This is not a performance. This is not the ego's idea of enlightenment. This is the quiet authority of one who has stopped seeking approval and started walking in alignment. A person who no longer needs the world to recognize their divinity because they have already recognized it within. This is the true birth of power. Not control, not domination, not force, but alignment. Power that flows without resistance. Power that heals without effort. Power that liberates without preaching. You do not need to argue with darkness. You only need to turn on the light. And the light within you does not flicker with the opinion of others. It does not waver in the face of rejection. It does not vanish when things fall apart because it is not built on circumstance. It is built on truth, eternal truth, the kind that existed before your story began and will remain long after your story ends. And this is what ego can never understand, that it is not your job to become something more, but to unbecome all that is false. Not to gather more things, more achievements, more spiritual credentials, but to surrender, to shed, to simplify, to become so empty of illusion that only truth remains. The ego resists this. It clings, it calculates, it compares, it builds altars to its own identity. But no altar built by the ego can contain the presence of the divine. God is not a possession. God is not a trophy for the enlightened. God is not a point to be proven. God is the breath between your thoughts, the peace underneath your pain, the space that remains when all self-concepts dissolve. You find it not by becoming more, but by becoming still. And in that stillness, you begin to see clearly. You begin to see how much of your suffering came not from life itself, but from your resistance to it, from believing the lie that life was against you, that you were unworthy, that you had to earn love, prove worth, fight for peace. But peace was never a destination. It was always your nature. Love was never a reward. It was always your essence. And God was never out there. God was always the witness, the seer, the still presence within. As this truth anchors deeper, your relationship with life itself transforms. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what part of me is ready to be healed through this? You stop resisting discomfort and begin welcoming it as the doorway to a deeper awareness. You stop fearing loss and begin recognizing every ending as an initiation into expansion. Nothing is wasted when you see through the eyes of the soul. Even your heartbreak becomes holy. Even your failures become fuel. Even your loneliness becomes a sacred invitation not to fill the void, but to become intimate with it, to rest in it, to realize that beneath the loneliness is longing, and beneath the longing is love. Not the love that comes and goes, but the love that you are. You are not the absence looking for completion. You are the completeness rediscovering itself through this temporary form. And so you begin to live differently, not with the frantic pace of the mind, but with the graceful rhythm of the soul. You begin to trust in timing, to surrender, to process, to move not from fear, but from deep inner resonance. You say no not to reject, but to honor alignment. You say yes not to please, but to follow joy. You walk away not to escape, but to return to yourself. And in doing so, you begin to see the world not as a battlefield, but as a reflection, not as a place to conquer, but as a mirror to awaken you. Every interaction becomes a chance to remember. Every trigger becomes a chance to release. Every breath becomes a chance to return home. And what is home? Home is the place within you that needs no validation. Home is the truth that has no opposite. Home is not somewhere you arrive. Home is where you live when you are no longer pretending to be anything but what you are. A spark of the divine wrapped in human form. Here for a blink of eternity to remember what cannot be forgotten. You are not here to suffer. You are here to wake up. You are here to love not as a strategy, but as a state of being. You are here to touch the fabric of life with reverence, to speak with sincerity, to walk with integrity, to listen deeply, and to give freely from the well of your soul. And in doing so, you become what the world has forgotten, a living presence of the sacred. You become the prayer. You become the temple. You become the embodiment of what the scriptures tried to describe, because the greatest scripture is not in a book. It is written in your being. It is etched in your stillness. It is spoken in your silence. And in that silence, not with the mind, but with the soul, that there is nothing left to seek. There is only this moment and the divine pulse that animates it. You are not becoming divine. You are remembering that you never stop being it. And that remembering is enough to change everything. There is a moment, quiet, unannounced, when all seeking falls away. Not because the world has changed, but because you have remembered what the world forgot. You no longer stand at the edge of the ocean asking it to show itself. You simply step in. You merge. You dissolve the illusion of separation and become one with the current. This is what it means to return to God, not to a skybound deity, but to the source that has always been flowing in your breath, rising in your intuition, beating in the very center of your chest. And in this return, you discover what cannot be taught. That love is not something you give, receive, or find. Love is what you are. You were not sent here to search for it. You were sent here to embody it. And when you embody love, not the fragile imitation born of fear and control, but the love that includes every part of you, even the broken places, you become a miracle in motion. You become the kind of presence that doesn't need to speak in order to teach. You simply are. And your being reminds others of what they've always been. You walk differently now, not in haste, but in grace. You listen differently now, not to answer, but to feel. You speak differently now, not to impress, but to align. You live not from a desperate desire to prove your worth, but from a quiet knowing that you are the breath of God in human form. There is nothing to defend. There is nothing to fix. There is only this presence unshaken, unconditioned, and untouched by the storms of the mind. You have not arrived at this place through perfection. You arrived through surrender, through the falling away of every illusion that told you God was separate from your breath, from your body, from your being. You are not here to rise above your humanity. You are here to bring divinity into it, into the chaos, into the relationships, into the heartbreak, the joy, the tension, the ordinary moment. Because that is where God lives, not just in the mountaintops and temples, but in the mundane, in the unseen, in the imperfect. And you are the sacred bridge. You are the place where heaven and earth meet, not someday, now in this breath, in this body, in this life. So stop waiting for a sign. You are the sign. Stop waiting for permission. You are the permission. Stop waiting for someone to save you. You are the remembering that saves the world. Not through might, not through noise, but through presence, through peace, through the quiet, unwavering embodiment of the truth that has no opposite. That God has never been outside. That God is not in the sky. That God is not in some distant realm waiting for your perfection. God is here. God is now. God is within. Within your choices, within your silence, within the love you extend when no one is watching, within the courage to forgive when the world says hate, within the softening when your ego wants to harden, within the breath you take, when you choose to return to the stillness that has always held you. You don't need to transcend the world. You need to infuse it with your light. Let the divine radiate through your ladder, through your tears, through your vulnerability and truth. Let it pour through your presence like a sacred current. Let it touch every room you enter, not because you're trying, but because you're finally being who you are. You are not a seeker anymore. You are a rememberer. And the memory is no longer distant. It is here. It is now. It is you. So walk gently, boldly, truthfully. Let your life be your prayer. Let your breath be your altar. Let your love be your message. And when the world forgets, and it will be the one who remembers, remember that every person is carrying the same spark, even if they have buried it. Remember that every conflict is a call for love, not for war. Remember that your past is not a prison, but a portal. Remember that this moment, yes, this very one is sacred. You are not here by accident. You are not made of mistakes. You are made of stars of breath, of ancient light. And when you die, and you will not meet God. You will dissolve into God. you will return to what you never left. But until that day, let every step you take be a celebration of the truth you've remembered. That God is not outside. It's the energy inside, and it always has been and it always will be. Now breathe. Smile. You are home. You are free. You are divine.